Okay, so after a few years in the bank, several years in the bank, I then became a broker, which was even more misogynistic than an investment bank. But I didn't see it, again, I didn't see it like that. I felt that I had achieved this accolade and it had served a purpose for me. I'd got financial stability compared to what my life ever was. So for me, even though I knew it was inequitable and not fair, I still felt that, look, I fought so hard for this and I've worked so hard for this. So nothing else really came into my mind. And actually when it first had an effect on me, that I was the only girl on the desk always. They never even wanted to recruit a female. And when I asked for our accounting assistant to come and shadow me for a week and try and give her an opportunity, she was also Indian, she was also really, she wanted to get far. She had that ambition, I noticed that. And she'd asked me, I said, yes, please. And my colleagues were like, no way. But then they'd take any other, some other bloke's nephew or some other guy's, friend's son to come and sit with us on the desk. And I thought, that's shit. Like, there's someone who understands their business. And because maybe I think it's because she didn't look a certain way. And whereas then you had these guys who just fart and burp and just swear all day, and that was preferable. So I thought, this is not right. That was around 2006, 2007. And
did then that open your eyes?
It did.
To start questioning other things?
Yes.
So this was the initial thing that you
I think
thought,
so, yeah. I mean, there were
bad business practice, or why are they doing this?
I didn't even think it was bad business practice. I did think that, but that wasn't my focus. I'm thinking, how could they let them and not let her? Mm-hmm. What's the mindset behind that? Because that person's more connected, or because they have wealthier background and they can potentially bring business in, rather than someone who would really, really work hard. And I know she had the same work ethic as I did, but yet that seemed really unfair to me. I think after that happened, very gradually I started to see things and feel things and question things. It was no longer just, okay, I've achieved a certain amount or I've got to a certain position, but I no longer feel that this is bringing me anything. There's nothing new here. I'm surrounded by the same people who talk the same shit, daily abuse. I mean, on both sides, not just them, but I gave even worse than I got because I felt I had to. In fact, I met one of my really good friends, was my old boss, and we met yesterday, and he said, oh gosh, your journey's been, and we both are sharing how we've changed throughout our lives and what we feel, what do our next 10 years, what do we want them to mean to us and to our families? And he said, oh, you were so aggressive, overly aggressive. And I said, but you do realise I was the only girl on that desk, and I came from another environment where I was the only girl on the desk, where I was privy to whoring at lunchtimes, blowjobs on the desk, all sorts of things, dwarf throwing in nightclubs, and I had to be okay with that. And you think if I had become more demure, would that have gained respect? Would that have made me an authority? Of course not. So I feel quite perturbed that you even think that, let alone say it. Because again, did you do anything to try and mix the desk up and try and bring other people in? No, I mean, you were attracted to, CUNTs, you were one. And, he agreed with that part, but he just said, no, but you didn't have to be, because that was a bit bitchy. And I said, what does bitchiness mean to you? I get called useless CUNT every day. I have to make more money than I've made the day before. And so every time I have a great day, it doesn't matter, because it's wiped out by the end of the evening. So the next day I've got the pressure of, oh my God, I need to do the same again. Otherwise the men, will think I'm completely shit. And that's how the rhetoric was. There was one partner who, again, is actually a mentor of mine now. But at that point, his mindset was very angry, it reflected just nastiness and anger. And yet that, I don't understand why that didn't motivate me to try and seek something else. Yeah. So after, probably several months, a year on, my ambition started to wane because I just was surrounded by negative shit all the time. And there was a new person who came onto the desk, a new partner who, and he was from Tunisia, he was French, and he was the biggest arsehole. I've never experienced that. in my life, and I'd come from that background. So, and being called horrific names in French to clients while I was next to him, and nothing being done because he made more money, I questioned everything, and I didn't have a sense of self-worth. I think that had been eroded over time anyway. So I think I was clinging on to the fact, no, I still have to make money, I still have to do something, because then I will be even less worthy.
Were you making good money?
I was making decent money. I mean, it's not the hundreds of millions, but I was making good money. For the firm, I made good money. But I definitely saw a reduction in, when I started to become more aware, more self-aware, I definitely didn't put the work in. And he had noticed that, but it went alongside him treating me like a piece of shit every single day. So, and then when I think of my earnings compared to my male colleagues, and I only found this because I befriended our accounts team and took them out and I lavished them with gifts.
Were you on a detective mission?
No, I just felt that something was wrong. I didn't know. I didn't ever know, but I thought, God, they're buying a lot more I'm quite frugal by nature. I was quite frugal by nature. And also always aware that this could change and this could go. So I can't have stupid spending patterns. And I used to see them buying ridiculous things, like ridiculous. And I had known, because you keep a record of your revenue each day. And I thought, hold on, I'm bringing loads in. I've got the 2 biggest clients. And even then, every single day they used to say, oh shit, and that, oh no, it doesn't matter. But I still didn't have that same life reflected in terms of all superficial things, but the fact is it was like a luxury life. And then I thought, this doesn't make sense. Okay, if I'm bringing this much in and I'm only taking this much home, there's a disalignment here. What do I do? Like, what could I do? They're never going to tell me. So then I said to the accounts girls, and I just said, look, can you just give me a breakdown of that? I made some bullshit up anyway to try and get some information. And I did it in such a way that it was kind of, drip fed to me. I thought, oh my God, I'm earning half, and even less of what they're earning. And this is a time when I'm bringing in more to the firm. I was never including in questions about money. I've only recently found out that they had all these investments together, didn't ever ask me once, which infuriated me even more. And then I think it just started, every single thing that was unequal about it started to affect me. And I just felt poor. I was always working from the age of 13, 14 anyway. But even we had such an issue with our bathroom that I had to give my dad money to fix our bathroom. And it was such an uncomfortable conversation because he was a proud man. And I just said, look, Dad, I've got the money from my work. Please, can we just get this fixed? Please. And it took several months for that to actually happen. So he would rather live in dilapidation than take money from me. And so I did have those years, I felt poor. I felt like, oh my God, and then I'm seeing people at university drive their really cool cars, and I'm meeting people who went to the top private schools, and I'm living in lack at that point, and I'm thinking, I don't want to be like this. So anyway, I get my job at the bank. I start seeing even more, wealth around me, and I'm like, oh gosh, I need to get something designer. I need to get some really high-end merchandise. What can I do? And I'd always walked around where New Bond Street was, but I never ever felt good enough to walk into the stores because I knew I couldn't ever afford anything in there. So this time, and I think I'd been working at the bank for about 1.5 years, I had my first bonus. I went into the Prada store and I thought, oh gosh, yes, it's a really, this is it. I'm going to own something from Prada and it's going to make me feel so important. And I was treated like absolute shit. And I allowed myself to feel shit. And there were sales assistants who did not even give me the time of day. And they in fact looked at me like I should not be in that shop. What are you doing here? Who are you? You don't look wealthy, you don't dress wealthy, you definitely don't act wealthy. So it was just so insulting. I felt crushed and I thought, hold on, I've worked so hard to come to this position. And I now have allowed myself to feel like shit from people I don't even know and people who are sales assistants. And yet I still felt that. So I went out and I thought, right, no, I went back a week later. I picked up, I just didn't even take any time. There was no thought process about this. All I wanted to do was go in, get a bag, go to the fucking till and pay for it. And pay for it like it just didn't matter to me.
Cash?
No, I didn't do that. No, I should have. I did think that would have been great, just doing that. No, I paid, and it gave me, I think I just felt accepted to myself. And I felt, yes, I've made it. Even though to them it was nothing. It obviously didn't mean anything to them, but it was such a significant point in my life that I thought, this is what it feels like when you can afford something. This is what it feels like. And it felt really good. I want to say that superficially, it was just superficial, but it felt so good. And then I remember walking in, totally ridiculous bag, not fit for my purpose whatsoever. Just the fact that it had that ridiculous logo on, and it was a piece of shit nylon bag anyway. Just that, I walked in and I felt better the next morning. So insane. When I think about it and I look back at things, I never want my children to attach themselves to those sorts of things, ever. I know that, it's a different world now, but that's something that's steeped in my mindset. I was introduced to Buddhism and through a very close friend of mine, and I just had started to feel lost. And I think that was apparent to everybody. I had an eating disorder, I had bulimia for about 5 years at that point. And I just was lost. I didn't know how to control that. And even that didn't feel like it was controlling anymore. Before, I used it as a means to feel like I was in charge. So she introduced me to Buddhism, and I felt connected. I felt connected, whereas I hadn't felt connected to anything.
Did you have a religious background?
No, we were Hindu. We followed traditions and cultural traditions. Like we celebrated the festivals, we got together as a community, but there was no deep religious spirituality there. No spirituality, none of that. I think that was a chance, but it was a series of events, one after the other, that had made me feel the only word I can think of is lack, because that's all I felt, that I didn't have. I didn't feel, just nothingness almost. And so when she said, look, I can understand you're not feeling great. Why don't you come with me to one of my practices and just see how you feel? And I didn't have this desire to find a religion, because I'm still Hindu, I will always be Hindu, and I believe that. But just an introduction into a different way of life and learning to be present was something that was completely obscure to me. And even though I still, it was just the start of my self-learning, I felt a kind of peace I hadn't felt ever in my entire life. And so I knew that I needed to do something, to do more of something and do less of something else. And that's probably when I thought, this career is not for me. And then I got pregnant, lost that baby, got pregnant again, and then lost another baby, and then got pregnant again. And I feel that all of these things were serving me. Life happens for you. I really believe life happens for you. And I think all of those incidences were to teach me something. I learned something from every single one of them, and I started changing. My brain started rewiring as to what was actually important in life, not just for me. I wasn't sure of that type of Buddhism, but then I went further into transcendental meditation, and I went on a weekend course, and that actually made me realize, stop looking at everyone else, look at yourself. And I think that was the most powerful thing that I'd realized, that I kept on seeing myself as, oh my God, me, this is not, they're treating me unfairly, they're doing this. But actually, look at yourself. What are you doing? What actions have you created for yourself? What is your thought process? Why are you feeling like this? And that, along with, I had to do mantras every night. And through me changing, my lens of the world changed. And it was so gradual that I didn't realise.
How gradual? What time period are we talking about?
I'd say this whole period of starting to learn about myself probably was 2 years. Because I had to get to a point where I didn't feel in my head I could go any further, or feel more alone, or feel just inadequate. I feel meditation is important to everything in life, because whether it comes to work or family or relationships, it just enables you to be present and still and just look at life through a different lens. And what it's done for me has made me accept not just others, well, forget others, it made me accept myself. From the introduction to Buddhism to transcendental meditation, I started seeing the world as one, rather than these separate silos where we're all in different religions, different cultures, and rather than working against each other, why aren't we working together? And that's where I started to truly understand that there are all these ridiculous inequalities, and what are we actually doing? What are we doing?
Corporate.
Everything I've learned exploring these areas has almost shown me a light. So if I give you an example, I'm very passionate about sustainability in all different areas, and I feel meditation complements that mindset, because when you are doing meditations, you do become more empathetic, you become more conscious of the world around you, and therefore that reflects in the decisions you make with business.